The autopsy. The autopsy of Jane Doe follows Tommy Tilden, an experienced coroner, and his son Austin, who work together in a morgue. Everything begins when the police find the perfectly preserved body of an unknown woman in a house where an unexplained massacre took place. With no external signs of violence, Jane Doe is brought in for an autopsy and quickly becomes a terrifying mystery. The more Tommy and Austin move forward with the examination, the more the body reveals disturbing signs, such as broken bones, a missing tongue, and punctured organs, all without any visible marks on the skin. As the night goes on, the morgue turns into a sealed nightmare. Doors lock, lights explode, bodies disappear, and hallucinations begin to blur the line between reality and illusion. The situation gets worse when Tommy, trying to escape, accidentally kills Emma, Austin's girlfriend, believing he's defending himself from something supernatural. This moment marks the definitive breaking point for the characters. At the climax, they discover that Jane is not dead. Her neurons are still functioning, and symbols found on her body reveal a direct connection to the Salem witch trials. Jane was tortured in the 17th century and unwillingly turned into an immortal witch, condemned to feel pain forever. She keeps father and son alive only so they can suffer the way she suffered. Tommy realizes that the only way to spare Austin is to offer himself as a sacrifice. Jane transfers all her pain to him, while her own body fully regenerates. Unable to endure the suffering, Tommy begs his son to kill him. Austin obeys, but shortly after, he also dies, deceived by yet another cruel illusion. In the end, the police find everything silent, take Jane's intact body to another location, and a simple movement of her toe makes it clear that the curse continues. Forbidden Child. Eli tells the story of a fragile boy who lives isolated from the world because of a mysterious disease. His parents believe that any contact with the outside environment could kill him, so they take him to a highly controlled experimental clinic. The place feels more like a prison than a hospital, full of rigid rules, cold doctors, and painful procedures. Eli can't leave, can't touch anyone, and lives in constant fear, without really understanding what's happening to his own body. During the treatment, Eli starts seeing strange figures in the hallways and hearing voices that no one else hears. The doctors say they're just hallucinations caused by the illness, but as time goes on, it becomes clear that something is very wrong. He also befriends a girl who appears outside the clinic, someone who seems to see him as normal, not as a doomed patient. In the final act, the movie turns everything upside down. Eli discovers that he's not a sick child, but the son of Satan himself. The supposed disease was actually a way to contain his powers. His mother made a pact to have the child she always wanted, hiding the truth from him about who he really was. The revelation completely transforms the boy. Feeling betrayed and used, Eli unleashes his true nature and brutally kills the doctors, nurses, and even the man he believed was his father. The friend who seemed innocent is also revealed to be Satan's daughter. The movie ends by showing that Eli never needed to be saved, only awakened, making it clear that evil won and is now free. The Prank. No Escape revolves around Cole Turner, a famous YouTuber completely obsessed with his own image. He built his career making extreme challenge videos in an online reality show called Escape from Reality, always presenting himself as the brave guy who faces any situation. To celebrate the channel's 10-year anniversary, Cole decides to create a special event and takes his girlfriend and some friends to what seems like just another horror-themed escape room, something perfect for views. The problem is that the game quickly spirals, out of control. The group realizes the challenges are way too real, way too violent, and with no clear chance to quit. Behind it all is Andre, a Russian criminal who takes control of the situation. Cole is tied up and forced to watch as his friends and girlfriend are subjected to brutal torture. For the first time, he can't edit anything, can't escape the narrative, and can't control the spectacle. When Cole finally manages to break free, the movie enters even more uncomfortable territory. He confronts one of the criminals and beats him to death with his bare hands. Right after that comes the cruel twist. The friends reappear alive and reveal that everything was part of an elaborate prank to celebrate the channel's anniversary. Everything was staged. Everything except one thing. The man Cole killed was real. The Meat Train. The Midnight Meat Train follows Leon Kaufman, a New York photographer obsessed with capturing the city's dirtiest and rawest side. Unsatisfied with criticism that his work doesn't take enough risks, he starts exploring the subway at night in search of more extreme images. It's in this environment that Leon witnesses an attack, photographs everything, and ends up saving the victim. The next day, when he discovers the woman disappeared, he dives into an investigation that soon turns into obsession. The clues lead to Mahogany, a silent and intimidating butcher who seems to ride the subway on the last train every night. Leon begins following him and ends up witnessing brutal murder scenes, with bodies being hung like meat in a moving slaughterhouse. When he tries to intervene, he wakes up marked and injured, realizing he's stepped into something much bigger than a simple serial killer. In the end, the truth comes in a brutal way. Leon discovers an abandoned station where ancient, monstrous creatures live hidden beneath the city. They need to be fed human flesh so they don't rise to the surface. Mahogany wasn't an ordinary killer, but an employee tasked with maintaining this macabre balance. After a violent fight, Leon kills Mahogany, believing it's all over. That's when the final blow hits. The train conductor reveals that the job must continue. He rips out Leon's tongue and forces him to take the butcher's place. To seal his fate, Maya, his girlfriend, is killed right in front of him. The film ends with Leon on the midnight train, wearing the cult's ring and accepting his role in a city that feeds on its own inhabitants. Cursed Crown. Kill List shows Jay and Gal, two former British soldiers who now work as hitmen. Gal is calmer and treats the job as something mechanical, while Jay is emotionally broken after a failed mission in Kiev. He's constantly angry, aggressive, and under financial pressure, which directly affects his relationship with his wife Shell and their young son. When a new job appears, Jay accepts it more out of desperation than conviction. The job seems simple: 3 names on a list, guaranteed payment, and nothing out of the ordinary. Each target leaves something unsettling behind. The first thanks Jay before dying. The second keeps disturbing videos that deeply mess with his mind. Jay's violence grows with each execution, as if something is being awakened. Little by little, strange symbols, bizarre behavior, and uncomfortable encounters indicate there's something much bigger behind the contract. In the final act, everything collapses. Jay and Gal come across a bizarre ritual involving human sacrifice. Soon it's revealed that the people Jay killed were all cult members, which is why they thanked him before dying. Gal is captured and brutally mutilated, forcing Jay to kill him out of mercy. Alone, he tries to save his family, but he's already surrounded. The field around the house turns into a ritual scene with torches and masked people watching. The ending is cruel and devastating. Jay is forced to fight the final victim, a hooded figure. He wins the fight, but discovers the person he was fighting was his own wife, with their son tied to her. Shell smiles as she dies, revealing that everything was part of a cult. Jay is not a survivor, he is the chosen one. The film ends with him being crowned, making it clear that the entire path of violence was just an initiation. Silent Echo. In Lake Mungo, we meet the Palmer family, who are dealing with the death of Alice, a teenager who disappeared during a trip to the lake and was found days later in a drainage system. From there, grief takes strange forms. Noises in the house, bruises on her younger brother Matthew, and the constant feeling that Alice is still around. Convinced that their daughter might not really be dead, the parents authorize an exhumation. The DNA test confirms the body is indeed Alice's. Even so, the family continues to be haunted by images, dreams, and photos that seem to show the girl watching everything from a distance. Matthew even installs cameras around the house, feeding the hope that something supernatural is happening. Later, he admits that part of the footage was faked just to help his mother cope with the loss. The final impact comes when they access Alice's cell phone, buried near Lake Mungo. In the video, the girl walks alone at night and comes face to face with something impossible. A bloated, deformed version of herself appears in the lake and moves toward her. It's her own corpse, the one that would be found later. Alice knew. She had a vision of what was going to happen. This revelation changes everything. The death wasn't an accident, but a silent suicide filled with fear and isolation. The family moves away believing their daughter's spirit has finally left. However, the final image shows Alice reflected in a window, standing still, watching. Hell Cycle. Baskin opens in an unsettling way with a boy waking up in the middle of the night after hearing strange noises coming from his mother's room. Something is watching him in the dark. The door is locked and suddenly a hand reaches out from the shadows. This scene seems isolated, but the movie quickly cuts to a group of 5 police officers having dinner at a simple restaurant. Soon after, they receive a call to provide backup in a village called Inkagok, a place surrounded by disturbing rumors. On the way there, the mood shifts fast. Grotesque visions, an inexplicable accident, and the feeling that something is wrong follow the officers until they reach an old abandoned police station. Inside, reality starts to break apart. They find a fellow officer in a catatonic state, hallways filled with disturbing images, and a blood-covered cult. One by one, the men are separated and confronted with physical and psychological horrors. Little by little, the film reveals that Arda, the youngest of the group, is the boy from the opening scene. Remzi, one of the officers, was a father figure to him. This emotional connection weighs heavily when they're all captured by the cult led by a figure known as the Father, who explains explains that hell is not a place, but something you carry inside yourself. In the end, Arda manages to escape and runs down the road, believing he's finally free. He asks for help but is hit by a police car. The revelation is devastating. It's the same car they were in before. The accident repeats itself. The film ends by showing that the officers are trapped in an eternal loop, reliving their descent into hell over and over with no escape. Faceless evil. Here we follow Julia, a woman whose life is destroyed within the first few minutes of the film. During breakfast, her daughter Kate chokes and starts suffocating. In desperation, Julia tries to save her but fails, and the girl dies right there. This trauma ends her marriage and leaves Julia emotionally empty. She moves alone into an old, quiet house, believing that isolation might help her deal with the guilt. Little by little, strange things begin to happen. Noises, the feeling of a presence, and the constant impression that someone is watching her. At first, Julia thinks it might be her ex-husband sneaking into the house, but she soon realizes there's something much darker there. Investigating the house's past, Julia discovers the story of Jeffrey, a boy who was murdered years earlier. The crime was blamed on a homeless man, but the truth is far more disturbing. A girl named Olivia manipulated other children into holding Jeffrey down while she killed him. Considered a child. Of pure evil, Olivia was eventually killed by her own mother. In the end, Julia finally sees Olivia's spirit and tries to hug the child, but the encounter brings no peace. Instead, Julia is attacked and has her throat slit by a toy that once belonged to her dead daughter. The Crazy Woman audition begins by showing Shigeharu Aoyama, a widower who is still trying to rebuild his life years after his wife's death. He lives a lonely, emotionally closed-off life until his son suggests he start dating again. With the help of a friend who works as a film producer, Aoyama agrees to a strange idea, holding fake auditions for a movie that doesn't exist, using the process as an excuse to meet women. During the interviews, he meets Asami Yamazaki, a shy, delicate, and seemingly fragile young woman. Unlike the other candidates, Asami seems sweet, mysterious, and almost too perfect. Aoyama quickly becomes infatuated and believes he's found a new chance at happiness. They start dating, and everything points to a calm, almost ideal romance. Little by little, the film begins to reveal something dark after she suddenly disappears from his life. Shigeharu discovers that her past is surrounded by lies and violence. Former workplaces are abandoned or linked to brutal crimes. The climax completely shifts the tone of the film. Asami reveals her true nature when she drugs Shigeharu and takes him to her apartment. Inside, there's a sack containing another man in his final moments. Asami finishes killing him. A torture session against Shigeharu begins, while he feels everything without being able to react, all shown in a cruel and graphic way that will be censored on screen because the scenes are extremely disturbing. She explains that he failed to love only her, saying she doesn't tolerate even the love he has for his son. In the end, Aoyama's son appears and manages to stop the worst by pushing Asami down the stairs. While they lie there on the ground, the two exchange their final words. Box in the dark. The Vanishing revolves around Rex, an ordinary man whose life is destroyed when his girlfriend Saskia simply disappears. She walks into a store to buy something and never comes back. Years pass and Rex is unable to move on. He doesn't know if Saskia is alive, dead, or suffering somewhere, and that uncertainty turns into an obsession. He abandons relationships, jobs, and any chance at a normal life because only one thing matters: finding out what happened that day. That's when Raymond appears, a polite, methodical, and terrifyingly normal man who reveals himself as the one behind Saskia's disappearance. Raymond doesn't run, doesn't lie, and doesn't try to hide. On the contrary, he provokes Rex. He says he can explain exactly what happened to Saskia, but only if Rex accepts a very specific condition. To know the truth, he has to live it. No stories or confessions. The full experience. Even suspicious, Rex realizes this is his only chance to finally close the void he's carried for years. He agrees to drink coffee laced with drugs by Raymond, believing he'll wake up to hear the answer he's been searching for. When he wakes up, Rex is trapped inside an improvised coffin, buried alive with no way out, no air, and no hope. Slowly, the realization hits like a punch to the stomach. This is exactly how Saskia died, and his years-long search was meaningless, leading him straight into this trap. The film ends on this cruel note. absolute revenge. The starting point of Oldboy already carries a brutal weight. In 1988, Oh Dae-soo is arrested on the very day of his daughter's birthday. Shortly after, he disappears without a trace and wakes up in a locked room resembling a cheap hotel, where he lives in complete isolation. With no explanations, no human contact, and food delivered through a small door, his only connection to Ka. The outside world is television. Through it, Dae-soo learns that he has been accused of murdering his own wife, a crime he swears he did not commit. The years pass slowly and loneliness destroys him from the inside. He goes insane, attempts suicide, trains his body to survive, and digs a tunnel imagining an escape that never comes. 15 years later, without warning, he is released, sedated, and left on a rooftop, thrown back into the world as if nothing happened. Now, all that remains is to find out who imprisoned him and why. The investigation leads Dae-soo to an underground system where people pay to keep others imprisoned. Along the way, he meets Mi-do, a young chef with whom he forms an intense bond, and they end up becoming romantically involved. At the same time, he receives constant phone calls from his tormentor, who introduces himself as Lee Woo-jin and sets up a cruel game. If Dae-soo doesn't discover the reason for his imprisonment within 5 days, Mi-do will die. The truth is revealed little by little, and it's devastating. In the past, Dae-soo witnessed an incestuous relationship between Woo-jin and his own sister, and spread the secret, driving the girl to suicide. That was the origin of the revenge. But the final punishment is even worse. Woo-jin reveals that Mi-do is actually Dae-soo's long-lost daughter, manipulated through hypnosis to get close to her father and fall in love with him. Desperate, Dae-soo humiliates himself, cuts out his own tongue as a plea for forgiveness, and begs for the truth to never be revealed to Mi-do. Woo-jin agrees, but he has already won. However, even after completing his revenge, he realizes he is not satisfied and that everything has only brought more suffering, and he ends his own life. In the end, Dae-soo finds the hypnotist who helped with the plan and asks her to erase from his memory the fact that Mi-do is his daughter. After that, Mi-do finds him alone in the snow, confesses her love for him, and they embrace. Even though the moment may seem like reconciliation or a happy ending, Dae-soo's expression remains tormented. He smiles, but at the same time shows pain and inner suffering, reflecting all the trauma and psychological consequences of what they lived through. It's an ambiguous and deeply disturbing ending. The Demon. The Neon Demon follows Jessie, an 18-year-old girl who arrives in Los Angeles hoping to become a model. At first she's shy, insecure, and still innocent, but she quickly draws attention in the fashion world. Photographers, designers, and agents see something rare in her, while older models like Sarah and Gigi start to feel threatened. Ruby, a mysterious makeup artist fascinated by Jessie, watches everything closely. As Jessie gains space, her personality changes. She starts believing she's special, that beauty is all that matters, and distances herself from any sign of fragility. This growth awakens envy, desire, and hatred. The atmosphere becomes increasingly dark, until the film abandons realism and dives into symbolic horror. In the ending, Jessie is lured into a trap and killed by the other models in a cannibalistic ritual. Her body is consumed as if beauty could be physically absorbed. In the final scene, Ruby goes through a kind of purification. Gigi collapses while trying to possess something that was never hers, starts feeling sick, vomits Jessie's eye, then grabs scissors and tries to cut the girl out of herself. Meanwhile, Sarah calmly walks over, picks up the eye, and swallows it, finally absorbing the purity she so desperately wanted. In The Neon Demon, the ending makes it clear that the fashion industry doesn't just consume dreams, it literally devours those who enter it.